Yes. Well, Black History Month should be spent in solving problems. Anybody who's having meetings should be talking about how you solve problems. That's 2 words. Very simple. You solve problems by doing the things that it takes to solve problems. And you just don't look back on history like many people have been doing, and I guess if that's what they choose to do, that serves some purpose. But mostly, when people look back on history, they use it for bragging purposes. And with all of the problems that people have right this minute, we shouldn't be in the bragging business at all. Not just for historical purposes, but for any purpose. There are too many problems on this planet for anybody to spend 5 minutes bragging about anything. And so that's one of the first things I want to say about Black History Month. Everybody should be sitting down, figuring out, first of all, looking at the problems that are around them right this minute, all of the problems, and using whatever they learned from the past to solve those problems. However, no one has ever solved the problem of racism in the form of white supremacy. No one has ever done it. So you can't research history and find out how to solve that problem. You can only research history or look back at history and find out how the problem evolved that we have now, which is the problem of racism. So then you see where all the mistakes were made that brought about this problem, and then learn from those mistakes. But otherwise, you're starting with a blank sheet of paper, and other than just looking around you and saying, well, now what do we have now? What are the relationships? What is the relationship between the white people and the non-white people on this planet right this minute? And it's a disaster, because relationships between all people on this planet is basically a disaster, primarily because of the dominance of racism. So this is how it should be looked at. You looked at it and say, now, this is the way it is. How should it be? And then start working toward being the way that it ought to be, because it's nowhere close to being the way that it ought to be. I call it the quality relationship. That's what we should be looking at. And there's never been any formula for that. So we have to work on that formula. What will make a quality relationship between each and every person, each and every day, everywhere on the planet, in all areas of activity? The quality relationship in economics, quality relationship in education, in entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And when you look at what's going on right now, it's nowhere near that. You don't have a quality relationship in religion anywhere on the planet. People are slaughtering each other everywhere about religion. And then people are slaughtering each other about what they call economic dislocation, etc. Babies, being carried across the desert by their mothers, trying to look for a place to go where they're not starving and where people are not fighting. Everywhere you see nothing but dissension. And in a lot of ways, you have a cadre of people who, as far back as anybody can remember, brag about all this dissension. They like war. The white supremacists definitely like it. They like any kind of fighting, and they glorify fighting of any kind. I was just looking at a old advertisement of a lady who just died, Miss Shirley Temple Black, who was a movie star this morning.
Right.
And even as a child, they had her, the picture that I saw this morning, they had her as a small child.
Called her the Little General, yeah.
Yes, holding a sword. Now, this is not the image that should have gone out even in the 1930s to teach a little girl. To be a warrior. People might say, well, you have to fight because there are all kinds of evil people in the world. Well, that's the whole point. Maybe if you can turn people's minds into not being so evil, then you don't have to have these swords, in award ceremonies and all like that, and have cannon firing at people's funerals. When soldiers die, one of the last things they when they're dead, one of the last things that you should have fired over there or around their casket is the firing of cannon or rifles. I mean, that's how they died in the first place. Bombs bursting in the air. You don't write songs like that. And the Star-Spangled Banner, that needs to be reexamined. Mm-hmm. Maybe we need a new anthem for the entire world. Mm-hmm. Maybe Louis Armstrong's "It's a Wonderful World." We need people to think about, hey, we need to get rid of this nonsense about people just have to kill each other.
Yeah.
That's just built into everything. And so that should be the aim of Black History Month. That should be the way to go.
All right.
And we should have universal man and universal woman rather than racist man and racist woman and their victims, because that's what we have now.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, we have a caller on the line. He has a question or a comment. Caller, you on, Ms. Neely Fuller. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. Am I on?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, Ms. Fuller, I can't thank you enough for giving out this information, because as a young black male, I'm finally coming to terms with my blackness and realizing that there is racism in the world, and I've been having a lot of questions. And like you said, a lot of this, besides the sprinkling of interviews on the TV and the pandering to America and the world, there's not a big discussion on it. And what you're saying has an incredible amount of scientific evidence and everything that you're saying. I have two questions, but I just want to get to the first one primarily. This is my first year teaching. Like I said, I'm a young black male. I just recently graduated from college. What do you see? And I do have both of your pieces of work, and I do use the compensatory concepts and the code. But again, Black History Month and the way history is being taught, and I walk past classrooms in history class, and I hear like the celebration of European conquest and how it's important to American history. What do you think would be the best way? And I mean, education is a major factor, obviously. It's number one of the major people activities. I mean, number two of the major people activities. How do you see teachers playing a role in disseminating your information and white supremacy and teaching how it should be dealt with from an early age? What age do you think that should start, and how do you think we should carry on in giving out this type of information in a formal educational setting?
Well, if I understand the question, what do you teach people? So it doesn't make any difference what age they are. You just teach them the truth, and then you teach them the truth about what has happened and what is happening, and then you look at what has happened and look at what is happening, and then you say, it's nowhere near the way it ought to be. That's the bottom line. It's real simple. Look at the whole history of the people of this planet, the whole history, and look at it the way that it is now, because history is being made just now. And as far back as recorded history, right up until now, the first thing you tell every class, regardless of their age, is that people have not conducted themselves nowhere near the way that they should have on this planet, as far back as recorded history exists. There's no record of people acting the way that people ought to be acting. We should be real quality people.
Yeah.
Our standards are too low and always have been. And I mean every person on the planet. Our standards have been much too low. By now, we should be universal man and universal woman at their best, meaning the most constructive organisms that the entire universe has ever seen. Everything about doing constructive activity and enjoying it. Constructive activity and enjoying it. But most of history is all about how well efficient people were at slaughtering each other. This is what page after page after page is about wars and rumors of wars and everybody gearing up for war. And all of the heroes are warriors. I mean, in most of recorded history, when people talk about Indians, they talk about the Indian warrior. I mean, when they talk about Africans, they mention Zulus or somebody like that. I mean, because they were great warriors. Or if they talk about ancient Romans and ancient Greeks, Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. And then they reenact the so-called Civil War, which makes no sense at all. There's no such thing as a civilized war. I mean, just the nonsense of the kind of things that they put in young minds, and then want to know why there are gangs running up and down the street slaughtering each other just because they live in a different neighborhood. That's the kind of foolishness that's been put in people's heads. All of that needs to stop, every bit of it. And let's say, well, let's start making some history for the first time that makes sense. Become universal man and universal woman. And you tell people of all ages that.
So poignant and so simple, and I knew, because it just doesn't make sense, all the war and that's going on in the world. And I mean, this world is an abundant place of resources, yet we have people dying of poverty, not having water, not having hunger. And what you're saying is racism, white supremacy, and having that lighter skin tone is what is dividing the human population. Mr. Fuller, again, I want to thank you. And I have one last comment to make, question. In America, this proclivity of white people, and you've seen it all through history since Europeans first made contact with the darker skinned people of the planet. Why is it that 70-80% of young white males are the ones that are buying hip-hop? Why is it that white Europeans raped black females? Why is this affinity of Europeans toward the darker skinned people? Like, what is going on? Why is it that why are we so emulated?
Let's start with the first question, Mr. Fuller. He said, why are 70% of young white males and females buying most of the so-called hip-hop music, Mr. Fuller?
Well, they can answer that question. That's the best way. That's what the code says. When people are doing things, you ask the people who are doing the things that they are doing, why are they doing it? That's whether they are white or non-white. I mean, if a person is doing something, they're doing it for a reason. And the best person to give that reason is the person who is doing it. Now, if the person is a white supremacist, the white supremacists don't do anything except something that's going to help white supremacy, because that's what they believe in. And that's the most powerful idea among people on this planet ever since the beginning of white supremacy. And it's the most efficient idea for misusing people in a political way and in a religious way. They are the strongest political and religious force among the people of the planet.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Fuller. How is buying hip-hop, I know what you said, but let's look at it. Let's see if we can stand back and look at it from how we would see it. How would a white supremacist buying hip-hop be a benefit to them?
I have no idea, because I don't know. See, it comes down to the details. What is hip-hop? And when a person is saying, I'm a hip-hop artist, or I'm going to sing a song, or I'm going to recite a poem, I mean, based on what we call the hip-hop way of expressing an opinion or expressing an idea or a concept that I want people to pay attention to, then you just look at the words, because hip-hop consists of words. So you just look at the words that are said. And then you say, okay, what are these words supposed to do when people listen to them? I mean, what are people supposed to think? What are they supposed to be inspired to do? Because when you're sending out a message, you're trying to inspire someone to do something. So it just comes down to each and every word in each and every song, or each and every poem, or each and every words in each and every book. That's all it is. It's just communications. What idea are you trying to communicate? That's what I would ask any artist. I mean, who's sitting down playing a piano or whatever, and then they start singing words, or they start reciting words. You can call it singing or reciting. And then I would look at the words, and I would say, now, you're sending a message. What is the message that a person is supposed to get, sir or ma'am, from what you just said, and what are they supposed to do with that message? Those are the two questions back to back. That's all you got to ask anybody who's writing a song. I don't care what the song. You can put it under swing or hip-hop or modern jazz. You can call it anything you want to. But if it has words to the song, or even if it doesn't have words, if it's just sounds, you can still ask the artists, when people listen to these sounds, just the sound of a piano, or a violin, or a guitar. When people listen to these sounds and you complete what you call your sounds that you have put out into the universe here, what is a person supposed to think? How is a person supposed to be inspired, and inspired to do what? Based on what you just put out. Because evidently you're looking for a reaction.
Mr. Fuller, let me, I think, caller, are you asking why does it appear that young white people are emulating or imitating black people?
And I mean,
is that where you're going with that?
Yes. Why is it? And you can even see it with, especially just very two major examples, who have millions of young white followers, Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber. You can clearly see them emulating the type of urban culture that has been produced of black people being in this country. And then with those two mega figureheads who are like leading the younger white generation, these are the people that they're looking up to, and they're emulating black culture. Why is that?
Well, let me jump in here and just say this before Mr. Fuller. We know for a fact some say Frank Sinatra did it. Elvis Presley did. I mean, that's been going
history.
on. Yeah. So
why
you're asking why?
You're
asking why is that? Good. That's a good question, Mr. Fuller.
I don't know, except I've already said though, if the person is white, and that doesn't mean that because the person is white, the person is a white supremacist. But anything that a person who is a white supremacist does, one way or another, is connected with increasing the power of white supremacy. Because that's just the way that they think. I mean, that's their whole reason for being. They don't have any other reason for being. I mean, they practically will tell you that. I mean, if you just get into what you call a long discussion and ask question after question after question, they will finally practically tell you that. Or they will cut off the conversation because they'll say, the only thing I really believe in is racism, because that's the whole essence of everything that I care about in every area of activity. If I can't practice racism, I don't see any point in even being here. So even if they're singing a song, it may not look like it on the surface, but if they believe in racism, that's what that song is about when it's coming from them. Now, how that works, I don't know, because no one has really figured out the magic that the white supremacists weave. Because they act in mysterious ways, and this is what makes them so powerful. I mean, the non-white people of the world are always looking at them in amazement. Always. And saying, how do they do what they do? Hello?
I'm here, Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think we've got another caller that's joined us.
Okay, that's completely fine. I just want to say thank you again for having me, Brother Kahari, Mr. Fuller.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll be speaking sometime in the near future. Continue what you're doing. Bless.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Fuller, we're going to bring on another caller who just joined us. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, good morning, Kahari, Mr. Fuller. How you doing, Mr. Fuller?
Pretty good. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm asking about, you always break down the difference in the dichotomy between emotions and logic, because that seems to be the thing that's really keeping us from advancing as a people, is that we don't understand those frequencies. So could you go over that one more time, Mr. Fuller, in detail?
Well, emotions serve a purpose. Everything in the universe serves a purpose. Emotions serve a purpose. And logic serves a purpose. Now, logic just means cause and effect. In other words, fire will burn, water is wet. I mean, we see evidence of that. Now, emotions in people is just what we might call adrenaline or drive or ambition. These are emotions. Emotions help people to want to do things and gives them the energy. They get the energy from their emotions, even when they're just almost running on empty. I mean, they haven't been fed correctly, or they are thirsty for food or water or something. But sometimes just going across the desert, the emotions will keep them going, but the emotions have to be attached to logic if it's going to work. Just like plugging in a lamp, so that you can get light. You have the lamp and the bulb, but if you don't have the wire plugged into the wall, you will not get a light from the bulb. So everything has to be connected. They call it connecting the dots. So emotions plus logic will get results. Now, the white supremacists know about, they use their emotions, and they have a lot of it, but they drive it right into logic. It's always connected with logic. Otherwise, they would not be the efficient people that they are at doing what they do. And so logic is all about this cause and effect. Now, what the white supremacists also do, they teach black people to praise their emotions. They cut black people off from use of logic altogether. They don't want black people to ever be logical, because a person who is logical will get things done. They want black people to have a whole lot of what we call spirit. And black people, even in Black History Month, always brag about how much spirit black people have. Oh, we are full of spirit. We call it soul. And what does soul do when it's not connected with logic? It just makes you jump up and down and turn flips and run around in a circle, and you're expending a whole lot of energy, but you're not getting anything done because you're not being logical. You're not connected with anything. You don't look at things and examine things in detail and say, oh, this is how you get this done. This is how you get this done. This is how you solve this problem. The black people of this planet are not problem solvers. I'm going to say that again. The black people of this planet are not problem solvers. Those are the two words that you have to tap into. We can be, but the white supremacists have taught us, oh, don't worry about solving problems. I'll take care of that. You just think about how you feel about everything. In fact, I'll sit here and listen to you up to a point. Tell me how you feel when you're mad about something, when you're in love, when you're angry, and when you're happy. Oh, yes. Those people have a lot of emotions. They're just full of all kinds of energy. They turn flips like you wouldn't believe. They can break dance like you wouldn't believe. But when it comes to really thinking about anything that has to do with solving just the smallest problems, leave that to the white supremacists. And that's why the white supremacists are supreme, because you have to attach emotions to logic, and logic is all about problem solving. And black people have been cut off from anything that has to do with solving a problem. We know how to make problems. We don't know how to solve them. And the white supremacists love it, because they know that they'll always give them endless power.
Does that answer your question?
Correct. I had one more question, if I could.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, what do you think about the...
Now, caller, we may have to interrupt you.
No problem.
Because we're going to have to do that, time down thing and then come back. But go ahead and state your question, and then Mr. Fuller, before you may not get a chance to fully answer it, but after we come back, you will get that chance. Go ahead, caller.
Okay. Give me your opinions on the gay football player that's coming out at this time and at this point in the game. The refinement. Show us the refinement involved with this.
Yes, I will. You want me to give it now?
Correct.
Hello? Yes. Oh, now, the white supremacists are using what you call racial sexual confusion as one of their major strategies, and is aimed at the non-white people of this entire planet. That's one of the main things that they are doing now in this modern age. They have made that decision that what they're going to do is confuse black people sexually, because when you can confuse people sexually, you can confuse them in everything. They won't even know what they're here on the planet for. They'll lose their focus on everything that makes sense. So what you want to do as a white supremacist now, apparently what they're doing all over the planet, is going around telling the dark-skinned people, the non-white people, we are going to degenderize you. say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, gender doesn't matter. I mean, gender used to matter, but gender gets in the way.
Mr.
When
Fuller,
you start talking about males, yes.
Mr. Fuller, hold your thought right there,
All
because
right.
I want you to pick up right where you left off, and I've got other callers waiting to talk to you. So everybody freeze. Don't nobody go nowhere. Stay right there. This is the compensatory concept heard exclusively on Talktaintmentradio.com.
Did you know that people born from 1945 through 1965 have the highest rates of hepatitis C, but most don't know they're infected? People can live for decades without symptoms, but over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems. If you were born during these years, the CDC now recommends that you get a blood test for hepatitis C, so talk to your doctor and find out if you have hepatitis C. It could save your life. No more.
This is S. Yolanda Robinson with All in Our Family. This month is Black History Month, and we're going to feature Dr. Harry Edwards and Val Gray Ward and Dr. Francis Ward and Dr. Ron Daniels. This week, we will have Dr. Francis Ward, Dr. Harry Edwards, and Val Gray Ward. That's Saturday, February the 22nd at 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. Stay tuned.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
The health care law gives us powerful tools to fight it,
To investigate it,
prosecute it,
and stop criminals.
Our senior Medicare Patrol volunteers
are teaching seniors across the country
to stop, spot, and report fraud.
You can help.
Guard your Medicare card.
Don't give out your card number over the phone.
Call to report any suspected fraud.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
Let's make Medicare stronger for all of us.
You got the power.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week with Mr. Fuller. We are live, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can catch us today again at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and at 10 p.m. at Eastern Standard Time. And then under our new schedule, which is coming out real soon, Mr. Fuller will be played even more. So we've got a lot to talk about. You can get Mr. Fuller's works at www.producejustice.com. I hope I didn't say too many W's. www.producejustice.com. And Mr. Fuller is here, and he's talking about this whole homosexualization. He's talking about this whole notion of the homosexualization of black people. Mr. Fuller, go ahead and continue, sir.
Yes. Do you hear a lot of coughing?
Yeah, I think someone is coughing. Probably call if you're coughing, if you can. Kind of, if you're okay with that, just kind of cough away from the phone. Okay, we're okay. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, the promotion of degenderization and other forms of sexual confusion among non-white people is a part of the white supremacist strategy, and it is therefore shouldn't be supported. It shouldn't be supported because it's a part of the white supremacist strategy to prevent non-white people from evolving into universal man and universal woman. Universal man should go with universal woman. But now if you confuse people sexually, that's anything, any organism, animal or insect, then they become dysfunctional in everything else. The sexual area is a very important area, and people shouldn't be confused about their sexuality. But everybody is born with defects in every way. All people are born flawed, and so we are flawed when we are born, when we have sexual energy that we don't know what to do with. And the white supremacists are directing the sexual energy now through the use of the mind. And they are now saying that there's no such thing as gender. Just like they're saying that color shouldn't matter, but color does matter because people do have colors. I mean, plants have colors. Trees are green, and then they turn in the fall, they turn red or gold, you might say, or something like that. And this is a natural order of things, okay? People also have what you call sexuality, but you can direct that sexuality almost in any direction, depending on what kind of society you have, which way you want it to go, because it's nothing but energy. And so it comes down to a question of how do you expend that energy? Well, the white supremacists have figured that since black males have struggled so long to be men, and during the time of Martin Luther King, when Martin Luther King was down with the Memphis garbage workers, they were walking around with signs saying, "I am a man." And the white supremacist doctrine is, oh, no, you can go from boys from boys to girls, but you're not going from boy to man. And so what I will do, that's why I used to castrate you. So I got another way of castrating you now, and that is I'll castrate your mind. And then your body won't know what to do. And you'll just run around with all your sexual organs if you won't know what to do with them. You'll go after a tree or a bear or whatever. And this is where the white supremacists are doing their work right now.
Okay. Caller, stay right there. Let me bring in another caller who just came on the line. Caller, you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Yes, I do.
Speak up a little bit.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is, how does Neely Fuller think that black people should handle emotions? And that's the biggest problem that I noticed, is that we don't know how to use our emotions when different scenarios or circumstances take place.
How should we handle our emotions?
Yes, how should we handle our emotions? And because we just tend to, as soon as something happens, we just tend to feel.
We fly off at the handle, so to speak. Yeah, we fly off at the handle is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mr. Fuller.
Your emotions should always be attached to logic. I'm going to say it again. Always step back rather than step forward without thinking. When something is confusing to you, step back. That's the first order of business. Step back and take a good long look at what you're looking at, and then start analyzing. That's all logic is, analyzing things, figuring things out, cause and effect. Fire will burn. Water is wet. If you've never seen fire before, stand back. Don't go toward it. Stand back from it and take a look at it, and look at it long enough to see what it does. And after a while, you begin to perceive that water doesn't do what fire does. In fact, water will put out a fire. You discover that. Discover that how? By logic and by looking and seeing what you're looking at. See, black people are taught to just walk past things all day long and don't see anything. We don't see the birds. We don't see the trees. We don't pay attention to anything except each other. And the white supremacists like that. And so, therefore, we're just a bundle of emotions because we don't analyze things. We don't, when a person says something to us or says something derogatory and whatnot, we just get angry, even before we know what we're angry about. You're looking at me. Now what's that supposed to mean? What are you looking at me for? And now that makes me angry. Well, why does that make me angry? Well, the reason you're looking at me is because maybe you think that I don't look the way that I ought to look, and maybe you don't look the way that you ought to look, and so I'm ready to fight you. But we need to stop and think. What is going to be the result of me acting without thinking? Because everything is going to have results. Every move that you make, every time you put your fork into some food and you eat that food is going to produce a result, depending on what the food is. It's either going to be constructive or non-constructive, because every move that everybody makes all day long is going to have a constructive result or a non-constructive result. So you want to, people say control your emotions, but then the question is raised, how do you control your emotions? By studying what it is that makes you happy and why it makes you happy. Study what it is that makes you angry and why it makes you angry. There's a reason why you get angry. You're not angry all the time. So when you do get angry, why is it that you're angry? Was it something somebody said? Now, if something somebody said, if they're telling a lie on you or something like that, that means danger. So you handle that in a logical manner by finding what? Finding what the truth is and exposing the truth. Letting everybody know what the truth is. That's how you handle that. That's the logical process. You don't get angry about the lie. You just study the lie and say, wait a minute, this person has said this about me. Now, is this true or false? Because it's going to be one or the other. And if it's true, well, then you see to it that it's not true if it's something that shouldn't be. But if it's false, you just simply say, now, what was said was false. You don't even call the person a name. Who said this about you? You don't say, you're a liar. You say, well, the statement that you made about me, sir, is not true. And I will proceed to show you why it's not true. See, everything is a matter of logic, cause and effect. We need to tap into the logic. And because emotions are supposed to lead you to logic, how to use logic. If you're called a name that you don't want to be called, you just simply tell the person what your name is, the name that you want to be called. Now, if they continue to call you a name that you don't want to be called, pay no attention to it, because you've already announced what your name is. That's the logical process. But if they want to call you something else, that's up to them. That has nothing to do with you. You have made it very clear that your name is Fred Jones, or whatever your name is, Mary Smith. But if the person wants to call you by any kind of nickname, any kind of derogatory name, or somebody else's name, or even their name, let them. But they are not really talking to you as such. And you don't have to give that any credibility at all, simply because you have decided that that's not you. It's real simple. It's not difficult at all. Once you tap into logic, have your emotions lead you to logic. That's it.
Does that answer the question?
Not really. It was, I meant towards like when you are speaking with someone and someone doesn't understand what you're saying. So they assume that they understand what you're saying, and they continue talking. And you be polite and you wait for them to finish talk. And by the time while they're talking, you notice that they already misunderstood everything. They already misunderstood what you were saying, and but they took an assumption, and then therefore you already you have the person who initiated the conversation feel like you can't even have a conversation with the person because they go with assumptions first.
So what you're saying is that your conversation with the person is creates confusion. Is that what you're saying? Or confusion that leads to hostility. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it leads to hostility because it seems like they'll feel emotions and they're going to assume that they understand what I say when I say something instead of waiting for the understanding.
Okay. Mr. Fuller.
That's where words come in, and that's what I mean by people slowing down when they talk and go over each word and make sure that the person understands the definition of the word that you're using, and so that you don't have that misunderstanding. Words are nothing but truth.
How do you slow down? How do you slow that down when you're
You simply tell the person. You tell the person, first of all, slow down. And you can't have everybody talking at once. That's another thing. I've seen that happen on panels. And it's really a big turnoff, I guess, for most listeners. When you have 6 people on a panel and everybody's trying to talk at once. Everybody's talking over everybody else. And what you have now is chaos. And then everybody the listeners begin to tune people out. Anybody who's had that experience knows that. I have sat on panels, and I've actually done that myself. I'll start talking, and the other person start talking, And then I'm talking while the other person is talking, and nobody stops talking, and everybody's talking at each other. And you can do that for hours on end and come up with absolutely nothing. You're not solving problems at all. Not a single problem gets solved through that process. But you get the impression that you have actually done a whole lot of excellent work. Why? Because you expended a lot of energy. So when you, first of all, you get people to one person talk at a time, and the process should always be questions and answers, because through the process of questions and answers, this is how all problems are solved. Every problem that's ever solved among the people of the universe has been solved through the process of questions and answers. Even going to the moon, the first person that looked up at the moon looked up at it and probably asked a question. What is that? And then later on, 1,000 years later, another person would say, I wonder if we can get there. How could we get there and get back safely? Now, that's an idea, but it's in the form of a question. And a person might say, well, I don't think so. And the other person will say, well, is there a way to do it? We went across the top of the mountain. We didn't think that was possible, but we did climb the mountain and came down on the other side after 200 years, of trying. So we finally did it. We figured out a way to do it. Or we tried to figure out how to get across that river. We didn't know how. We didn't know how to swim, maybe. So we learned how to swim. But it started with a question. How do you get across the river? If you want to get to the other side of the river and you can't figure out what to do to get there. But it started with a question. It's all the process of questions and answers. But you slow people down, let one person talk at a time, and you ask question after question after question. Because every question has an answer. It's just a matter of finding out what it is. And most likely the first answer is going to be, I don't know. Well, once you don't know, then you need to ask the second question is, do I need to know? And if you figure that you need to know, that's when you're making your progress. Because through the process of questions and answers, you will probably get something done. But there's people shouting at each other and name-calling and putting each other down and all like that, even at conferences and whatnot. And one person talking about how smart the other person is or how dumb the other person is, that's not progress. It's questions and answers about what it is you're trying to do, and that's solve a problem. That's all it is. It's a very simple formula. The white supremacists understand that. They know how to ask questions, and they know how to get answers. And it's not personal. They'll depersonalize it. And the more they depersonalize it and stay concentrated not on the personalities, but on the questions and the answers, that's how they get somewhere.
Yes. Caller, did that help?
Yes, that did help a lot to slow it down. And my last question is: does Neely Fuller ever, like, when you're listening to somebody speak and they're talking about certain points that they're trying to make, you don't ever feel like you need like a notepad, like how Malcolm X had a notepad when they interview him and they ask him questions and they go on their point, he write down certain things to memorize certain points that he's going to retaliate on. And I feel like sometimes it's hard to do without having a pen and paper, because sometimes people are very intelligent, and if you don't, I can't catch the point at where I want to question them, and they'll keep moving on to another context.
Okay.
Yes, but you don't move to the answer to a second question until you take care of the answer to the first question. I constantly tell people that myself. I mean, you don't just hop from question to question to question in rapid fire. I mean, just boom, 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 boom. I mean, with no answers, you're not getting anywhere. You're not getting anything done. I mean, it seems like you might be, but like an old sergeant I used to have, he said, Fuller, you're spinning your wheels, but you're not getting anywhere. You're making a whole lot of noise, You got your foot on the gas, but you're kicking up a lot of mud, but you're not moving. And so, we as black people are kind of notorious for that. But at the end of the day, because we expended a lot of energy.
Mr. Fuller, hold on for a minute. Someone has their radio up. Caller, can you turn down your computer so that, okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes. So you always want to do one thing at a time. One question, one answer. And you don't move to question number 2 until you answer everything about question number 1. That way you don't lose anything in translation, and at the end of the day, you don't have a lot of gaps in what you started out to do, because just like putting up a building, if you're using a certain number of bricks and you have extra bricks left over to the side, that means that those bricks did not go into the structure of the building that you put up. And you know what that means? When the first wind comes along, that whole big structure that you think is so pretty is going to come down in one instant. The whole building is going to collapse. Why? Because you left out essential bricks. So you don't skip over bricks. Any brick mason would tell you that. You don't have added bricks. I mean, it's just left over to the side there, and nobody knows why they were left to the side. No, they were left to the side because you left those bricks were in that foundation somewhere, or somewhere in the structure of the building. And so when you got missing bricks, just like when you have missing answers to questions in a structure, it's going to come back to haunt you. I don't care how big that project is supposed to be.
Okay. I got another caller on the line. Caller, go ahead with your question.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, I got one question. My question is, we as black people in America, should we first, as dealing with racism and white supremacy, should we deal with it on the religious area activity first, meaning that, like, we as black people might consider ourselves Christians or Muslims or whatever, but should we put the religious doctrine to the side and just deal with us coming together as black people, like white people do, as white people come together as white supremacy, because white supremacy is religion. That's their religious beliefs. And they look at themselves as white first. So should we as black people kind of do the same thing, get on that page, instead of just trying to, be slaves as far as a Christian religion or whatever, So we just, come together as black people first and deal with the issue.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Fuller.
Depends on what your religion requires you to do. I always say the same thing about religion. It's just 3 questions. What's the name of your religion? Because most religions have names. Number 2, what does your religion require you to do in all 9 areas of activity? Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, other people's religions, sex, and war. Because most religions have requirements. Okay, and then number 3, what does your religion require you to do when you interact with me? Okay, and when you say me, that means any person that you interact with. Religions have requirements. So you just get that straight. See, understanding. You want to get an understanding of what your interaction with every person on this planet is going to be. I don't care when you encounter that person. You want to know, what is your interaction going to be with me, and based on what? And if a person says they have a religion, regardless of what the name of that religion is, at the beginning and the end of each day and all through the day, you want to know what that person is going to do when they are interacting with you. Now, what they believe in and what their connection is with the deity and with the creator of the universe and all like that, that's their business. Your business is to find out not what their relationship is with their creator. Your business is to find out what their relationship is going to be with you. Because if they have the correct relationship with their creator, it should be about problem solving. But if it's not about problem solving, then that person can say, well, my religion is not about solving problems. All right? Then you say, oh, Well, then when I'm around you, I cannot expect any problems to be solved, right? So you ask questions. Everything comes through the process of questions and answers. Oh, your religion is not about solving problems. Oh, okay. I don't want to argue about that. I just want to know, since you've told me that, I have to ask a question. When I'm around you, am I to expect problems to be solved? Or can I expect problems to be made? Or I expect whatever it is I'm supposed to expect from you. What should I expect from you when I'm around you, you and your religion? What should I expect from you? Tell me. It's your religion. Just tell me so I know what to expect. See, no surprises. That's all you need to do with anybody. You don't need to, we need to go into details when we talk to people rather than just broad brush everything, like the use of the word America. Stop mixing up the term America with white supremacy. They're not in the same category at all. America is an excellent concept, just like Africa is an excellent concept, just like Asia is an excellent concept, but they don't exist. Why? Because to be an American, you have to practice justice. If you don't practice justice, you cannot claim to be an American. You can't claim to be an African if you don't practice justice. And you can't claim to be an Asian if you don't practice justice. Now, justice does not exist anywhere on the planet. Because what's the definition of justice? The logical definition. Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help gets the most constructive help. That's not happening anywhere. So nobody is qualified to call themselves an American, an African, or an Asian. No person. That's a concept that everybody should be trying to achieve. I should be trying to be an American and an African and an Asian, because these are excellent concepts. Being an Asian, being an African, and being an American, because it means a person who is practicing justice. But I don't practice justice because I'm a victim of racism. And victims of racism are not in position to practice justice because we are victims of injustice. So we're not practicing justice. But we should be trying to produce that product called justice. So never mix up the word American with the term white supremacy or any other derogatory term, because American just means a person that practices justice. Everybody should want to be one. But nobody is qualified to be one. Nobody. I make that flat-out statement for the whole world. Nobody is qualified to call themselves an American or an African or an Asian. So what do you have? You have white people, non-white people, and white supremacists. That's what you have on this planet, bar none.
Okay, caller, did that help any?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, callers. Mr. Fuller, we've got about a minute left. Any closing thoughts?
Yes, well, those were basically the closing thoughts that I wanted to get in today, because I keep hearing this term American used over and over again. That causes confusion. When you take the word America or American and you hook it up with the term white supremacy, it just doesn't make people squeamish. It's inaccurate, because no one is really defining what makes a person a real American. And even the term real American, they'll say this is an all-American. They even talk about some football players being an all-American. Well, if what is an all-American as different from a person who may be American? I mean, what are you talking about? See what I mean? The word has been kicked around in such a way that it makes no sense at all. And words have to make sense at all times. And I want people to pay attention to the use of words, because that's what we're talking about here. You can get my book through producejustice.com.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on Talktaintmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio.